Wing freak terrorizes. Wait till they get a load of me. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I'm Nick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. And welcome to Tuesday's edition. I've nearly forgot what day it was. Welcome to Tuesday's edition of the DCU Daily. Your DCU headlines today. James Gunn says he will differentiate from the DC universe and Elseworlds by creating a new logo for Elseworlds content. I personally think this is a very good idea because the normies are already confused about what DC Universe and DC Studios actually is. Nobody understands, and James Gunn isn't making the situation any better. Why? He was asked yesterday if the Suicide Squad, his Suicide Squad movie, is DCU canon. He called it a fever dream. Doesn't help the situation. What does that mean, James? So 1 minute he's saying the Suicide Squad is kind of canon, it kind of isn't. Basically, if something from Creature Commandos onwards mentions something, it's canon, and if it doesn't, it's not canon. As we all said from the beginning, basically making the Flash movie a backdoor pilot to the DCU was a problem instead of doing a fresh reboot. Because if you're going to do a fresh reboot, you may as well have just fixed the DCEU, continued the DCEU with whatever you were going to do. There was a Flashpoint movie, you could have continued to do what Walter Hamada was going to do, the former president of DC Films, which was, after the Flash movie, reset the DCEU timeline without changing it from the DCEU to the DCU. People are confused. Why is Henry Cavill? The normies are asking, why is Henry Cavill no longer Superman? Why now have we got a brand new Superman, David Corenswet? It doesn't make sense to anyone, and James Gunn seems to be confusing the issue a hell of a lot more. And hopefully, after we've all seen Superman, the normies, who are the mainstream audience, who are not on the internet 24/7 like you and I. Yes, I'm a sad loser. I'm on the internet a lot. I have to be for what I do on these videos. I need to know what's going on, and the internet, social media, is the best way to research the video I'm going to do for you guys each day. Normies are not on the internet. They've just seen, they've seen the DCEU. Some of them liked it, some of them hated it. They liked some films, they hated the others. And then James Gunn's kind of come riding on his white horse, or that's how his stands and his shills think of him as. So that's a very, very interesting situation. So basically, the Suicide Squad sadly isn't canon. I actually love the Suicide Squad movie from James Gunn, and I wish it was canon. But he's picking and choosing what's canon. For example, 1 minute he was saying Peacemaker Series 1 isn't canon, then some of it is canon. Do you see what I'm saying? It makes James Gunn the most unreliable narrator. You don't know where you are with him. Basically, he's also said that canon doesn't matter. And ultimately, I think the way you've got to look at it, if you are confused, come here, let me help you. Basically, from Creature Commandos onwards, it's all canon, and ignore everything else. So basically, Creature Commandos, Superman, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is the new reset. Peacemaker 2 is the new reset. And if something's mentioned in those projects, then it's DCU canon. I know it's very, very confusing. It wasn't the best way to do things, was it now, James? But this is the direction you've gone in. So hopefully, if your stuff is as good as Creature Commandos, and whether you deem Creature Commandos as good, bad, mid, indifferent, or whether you think it flopped on Max, doesn't really matter. It was very, very good. And it didn't need to be a huge, huge success anyway. Everything is on Superman. The pressure is on Superman and boys and girls and everybody else. It basically, Superman needs to succeed. James Gunn has also confirmed he's now working on a brand new project or writing a brand new project. He also says he doesn't feel under so much pressure now. Now he's not directing Superman anymore. He really didn't enjoy directing Superman. Peter Safran pretty much pressured him into directing that film as well as writing it. I think he wanted to write Superman, or that was part of the bargain he made when he lost his job temporarily at Marvel Studios, with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 temporarily being postponed because of the old tweets resurfacing. So he would have agreed to anything at the time because his reputation was toast, and no one apart from WB basically would touch him with a barge pole. And so that's how he got sucked into writing a Superman movie way before Zaslav and Discovery came to the table. And it's only once Zaslav saw his Superman script, Zaslav said to him, look, I've tried bringing in someone to run this brand new DC Studios. Why don't you do it? Because you seem to know what you're doing. Very interesting. Where be the judge of that? The fans, when we've seen his Superman movie, because that's how entertainment works. That's the beautiful thing about making a film. No matter how hard somebody works on it, it's the consumer who's the judge, jury, and executioner. And that's something that creatives need to be comfortable with. They spend so much time blaming the fans, blaming the audience for their failures because of their creative bankruptcy. I would prefer creatives who were honest. Right now, they're saying stuff like, oh, people just don't want to go and see good movies anymore. No, give me a good movie, I'll go and see it. Give me a good scripted TV show or streaming show, I'll put my telly on and watch it. Unfortunately, you're not making a lot of good or great entertainment, and that's why I'm rewatching Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones was peak, great, awesome entertainment. Even the final season, season 8, is better than most of the streaming crap they're producing today. Facts. But while we're here, we should kind of mount an investigation. What is this secret project that James Gunn is working on? Now, the smart money is on the Authority. The Authority is more up James Gunn's alley as a storyteller than Superman. So that's going to be very interesting. Now, there's going to be a hint about the Authority in Superman. The engineer, who is a member of the Authority, or so I've been led to believe. I don't know much about the Authority, by the way. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on the Authority. But they're anti-heroes. We know how great James Gunn is with anti-hero teams and groups. So the smart money is on James Gunn writing and maybe directing The Authority. I think that will be his baby. But there's no question, Superman has really drained the life out of him. It was a huge production. He's never worked on a production that huge. It's not just the largeness of the production, it's the pressure. Because everything, as I said earlier, everything is relying on a successful Superman movie. And as I keep on saying every day, nobody knows. Not me, not you, even Nostradamus, if he was still alive, couldn't tell you the prospective box office of that movie. This movie is so unpredictable. I thought his Suicide Squad movie would make near 800 million to $1 billion. It was on day and date. I should have taken that to account. But I thought, this is James Gunn. This film looks great. The marketing for it was certainly great. And James always talks a good game when he's talking up his project. So I thought, how can this fail? And it did. But obviously, the COVID pandemic at the time, and it's not an excuse, played a significant part in that film flopping. But this is going to be the big test. There will be no excuses. Gunn claims he's made his movie, and no one has interfered with him making his Superman movie. His name is on the door. When your name is on the door, the buck stops with you. He's either going to get the praise or he's going to be blamed for Superman. But I've said for the longest of times that this Superman movie could be more controversial than Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice put together. So I think you're not going to get just a smiley 1978 Superman movie. You're going to get something more. But yeah, I think the authority is where the smart money is on James Gunn's secret project. But there could be something else. We've been talking about the DCU Batman for the longest of times. I've been telling you I believe that Brave and the Bold in its current form will not happen. And certainly Andy Muschietti will not be directing any DCU projects. I can also assure you of that. And it certainly won't be Brave and the Bold, a movie, a Batman movie that in my mind doesn't exist. He could be writing and directing a newly tooled Batman movie. Whatever that is, I don't know. Now, there's lots of guesses about if Robert Pattinson's going to be the DCU Batman. As I've said before, when you see the type of directors that Pattinson is working with and aligning with at this moment in time, it doesn't look viable. It also looks like we won't see this Batman movie until after the Batman 2 is done, dusted, and released. That's a long time to wait, but it doesn't mean we won't see the DCU Batman cameo in films like Superman and other movies, so that will be interesting. But they need a DCU Batman. There's no question about that. They need a DCU Batman because you can't have a connected universe, a connected DC universe without Batman. But the existence of Reeves' The Batman crime saga is a problem to any other existing Batman. And it's not really Gunn's fault. As I've said many a times, this situation arose before he came on. So Matt Reeves does have a Batman. He does have a Batman crime saga. It was a successful movie. The Penguin was a very successful series. I don't think it was the goated peak, show that everyone thinks it is. I did enjoy elements of it, and there's elements of it that are also very, very current day, unfortunately. And you can check out my reviews of that series here on Instagram or here on YouTube. Whatever you choose, it's up to you. But yes, it's a bit of a mystery right now what happens to DC after Superman. A lot of people have proclaimed that this will reset DC, that this will make DC finally be successful. But here's the thing, talking about DC Elseworlds, that really the legacy of live action DC movies is more on the Elseworlds element. It's giving directors the freedom to take their shot on these DC characters rather than having a plastic connected universe. Whether you talk about Donner's Superman 78, or Burton's Batman 89, or Batman Returns, or Todd Phillips' Joker, or Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy, that is within the legacy of DC live action. You could even say that Smallville was a couple of creatives' vision of a pre-Superman story. So it's in the DNA of DC to give directors permission to give us their singular take on certain DC characters rather than creating this plastic MCU smiley, gaggy, always the bestest ever kind of thing. And I think this is the situation here, and this is why I think we were better off with just DC Elseworlds rather than the DCU. But they want their cake and they want to eat it. They want the DCU and they want DC Elseworlds. But is DC Elseworlds just something that's going to have the Batman 2? The Penguin series 2, if they're serious, if they're truly being serious about a second series of the Penguin. I don't even know where you go with it. I think you shouldn't do something like that unless you've got a story to tell. And here's the thing for me, what story could you possibly have to tell on the Penguin after the Batman 2 that you wouldn't want to do in the Batman 3? But because Reeves may have to fall on his sword and maybe he's not allowed to have a Batman 3 anymore, maybe that's why they'll have a Penguin series 2. Maybe that's what, this is the deal Gunn's made with Reeves, where he gets to do HBO shows rather than doing more the Batman movies, so he can finally do his own Batman movie for the DCU. We shall see.